Vietnam War. Vietnam War. War has been known to be no good, not very fun times, but the Vietnam War has been known to be its own special kind of hell for all parties involved. Media has portrayed the Vietnam War as probably one of the most miserable war they can get involved in. World War I is getting there, with war crimes, chemical weapons, traps as far as the eye can see, fragging, claustrophobic death tunnels, tech disparity, and worst of all, mosquitoes. Can you imagine the mosquito bites there? Keeps me up at night. But hey, at least the Vietnam War has a great soundtrack, so at least there's that. I've always found it a really fascinating setting. But someone asked an important question. How can we make the Vietnam War even more of a bad time? And the answer? Zombies. Wait, not that one. Not that one either. That's the one. Well, there's also dinosaurs and kaiju, but we're not talking about that now. Why is Shellshock 2 and not 1, you ask? That's because Shellshock NAM 67 was a completely normal Vietnam War game. Was it good? It was okay. Then the sequel got a new developer, Rebellion. Wait, these are not the same Rebellion that made the Alien vs Predator game or the Sniper Elite games with the zombies in it. Wait, they're the one who developed the original Tomb Raider games? What? Rebellion decided that they need to spice up the Vietnam War setting by turning the originally third-person perspective into first-person, crank up the horror, and add some zombies in it. And maybe some ghosts too. Maybe. Ooh. Developed by Rebellion, published by Eidos, and released in 2009. By the way, you cannot get this game anymore, not officially at least. There are ways. And before we go on further, please consider leave a like, share, and subscribe. It'll really help me and the channel, and I'll be really thankful. And of course, enjoy the video. Let's start with the premise first, shall we? You are playing as Nate Walker, a GI that got recently drafted for the Vietnam War. But his first deployment will be a special one. His brother Cal Walker, the protector of the first game, was found with his squad killed, and him being a bit different because of something called the White Knight. He still seems to recognize Nate though, and by touching him, Nate starts resonating with his memories and sees visions. This touching reunion was then ruined by the Viet Cong, who attacked the compound to capture Cal, allowing him to escape into the wilderness, making everyone's bad time even worse. Your mission? To retrieve Cal and find out what White Knight is before it's too late. I just want to say that I like zombie fiction that shows the beginning of an outbreak. It's always interesting to see how people react to them when they first meet them. Especially because most zombie fiction worlds usually doesn't have any experience with zombies at all in their media or anything like that. So they don't know what to do when people start eating each other. And not in a fun way. That's my 2 cents about the premise at least. Did they deliver an engaging story though? But as a PC game, how's the port? Let's take a look at the options. Not gonna lie, it's pretty much about what you expect, just maybe a little better. Controls are fully rebindable, that's good. Inverted controls, aim sensitivity. What? Does this mean mouse sensitivity? And the ability to turn off aim assist, including its sensitivity if it's on. That's good. Pretty much the standard graphical options, just with a bit more limited options than usual. No medium option for some of them. The brightness option also doesn't give us an example of darkness in game. Just use the, if you can see this, turn the brightness down type, which I think is less helpful than the in-game one combined with that. There are some advanced options though, offering more fidelity or lowering it if you want, like blob shadows. Also, noticeable lack of an FOV slider, because this game sure needs one. Audio options are separated, and thank God for subtitles. You can also turn off crosshairs and autosave for extra immersion and difficulty, or you just want to suffer for some reason. The options are okay, and better than some of the games that I've actually played in this channel, so good on them. As for performance, it's fine most of the time, but there are some dips in the more open maps, but it never got to the point that it goes full PowerPoint gaming. As for bugs, it's mostly the AI freaking out, and if you think it might just be the zombie AI being like that, the humans are also like that, so that's a universal problem. Another one is that in some of the sudden QT attacks, the enemies will literally pop into existence in front of your eyes. I don't think it's supposed to be like that, and some general ragdoll fun time. But other than that, it was surprisingly smooth sailing and never crashed on me once. So I said they've done a good job with the port. But let's see the results of those options, shall we? What about the presentation?
Yeah?
Hello.
Wait, so oh, come on!
First, I'd like to address the art style. It's weird. While at a glance it looks like your average realistic should-be-bang game, the game actually uses stylized character designs. It's not really that obvious to the male characters, but jarringly obvious to the female one. Damn, she looks like she's straight out of Clam. It really clashes with the tone the game is going for, especially because the game has a grim realistic horror tone most of the time. Otherwise though, the game doesn't look too bad. The lighting and shadows looks kinda nice sometimes. And I also like that your character casts a shadow. It adds a certain physicality into the game, combined with the torch that actually feels like it's something that the protag carries with him. It adds into the immersion and horror feel. Textures are decent for an old game, as long as they don't look too closely. Most of the time. Gamma still looks nice enough. Don't know how accurate they are though. Gotta ask someone else for that.
This is Jonathan Ferguson.
Some of the environment still looks pretty decent and spooky too. I also like the minimalist UI. It keeps you engaged in the game while distracting you with waypoints, ammo count, and such. There are some gameplay problems with this, which we'll get to later. But it looks nice. I'm also genuinely surprised that they have actual living animals in this game, which they really don't need to, because they're basically just ambient objects for atmosphere. But they did it anyway, and I commend them for it. It does make the world feel more alive, rather than just levels in a video game. And the carnage that comes from a gunfight still looks pretty gnarly. I think the weakest aspect of the visual are the character designs. While the zombies and the Viet Cong still looks pretty good, especially the zombies, except for one specific type. But they're kinda lacking in the variety of their models, leading you to go, oh, that's the lady type, oh, that's the VC type, oh, that's the GI type, which leads you to fighting multiple of the same models at the same time. And it's far more obvious here owing to the game's slower pace compared to, say, Left 4 Dead. The American looks more like G.I. Joe cartoon characters with stylized designs that clashes with the tone and the general realistic look of the game. They also have really dead eyes, like deader than the zombies somehow, and also refuses to look you in the eye. It's kinda awkward that they're looking at your mouth when they're talking to you. As for sound design though, it's quite hit or miss, a bit tilted towards the miss. Gunfire sounds are either very weak feeling or actually quite punchy. The M16 feels particularly weak, while the shotgun and pistols in general sounds decent. It also doesn't help that most of the gun models are pretty static when firing, with almost no moving parts or other feedback other than the most obvious ones, which makes the guns not as fun to shoot. And look at these grenade explosions. While probably more realistic than the usual giant fireball, it's not very impressive to look at. The audio quality for some of the combat banter for the Viet Congs are also not very good. It sometimes sounds like they're blowing up their mics. And the spatial audio just goes wrong sometimes, where it sounds like they're right next to your ear when they're actually far away from you. It's kinda freaky. The zombies does sound pretty good though. They're appropriately feral sounding, but still suffers from the same audio problem, which kinda makes it hard to pin down where they're coming from, especially when they don't make any footstep noises for some reason. Their audio in general feels a bit too low, but we'll talk about that later. Atmospheric sounds are actually pretty okay though, and adds into the more horror feel that the game is going for, even if it is using the classic horror soundscape of crying babies, heartbeat noises, and women screaming in the distance, "Don't wave." But hey, it wouldn't be a classic if it didn't work. There's also some licensed music which all Vietnam War BD has to have. But honestly, I see all of this licensed music, but I don't remember any of them playing in the game itself, except for the credit song, which was Freebird. Of course it's Freebird. The original soundtrack though just gets drowned in the background, if there even is one. And most of the game are just ambient noises with Nate's heartbeat and labored breathing. For the cutscenes and voice acting, they're actually pretty decent. Some of them does feel like they need some retakes though, especially Nate's actual dialogue with other characters, not his monologues. I think they're fine. And his, whatchamacallit, hurt noises sounds appropriately painful.
Hey! Why'd you do that? What's happened here, man?
Everyone fucking died, that's what happened.
Captain Trang was close on our tail. He wanted White Knight. I thought one of us had the answer. And something told me that unless I found Cal before him, hell was waiting. For all of us.
And all of the other VAs did a pretty good job portraying the characters. The standout being Griffin, mostly because he sounds very familiar.
Bridge.
Yeah, and Elvis singing fucking Paradise Hawaiian style. Mosquito kind of flown up your nose, sucked all the blood out of your brain, boy.
And also Serena, but she's just a really baffling character in general.
Even dreams don't get this good, baby. I'm all real. You wanna touch?
I don't know what they're going for with her. The cutscenes are mostly in first person with some in third person. Third person ones can actually have some interesting shots, but there's still some awkwardness to them, especially because how jarring the cutscenes can appear on you. It's almost like a jump scare. Whoa, what the fuck? And some other things, but we'll get to that part in the gameplay section. Overall, the presentation is very hit or miss. Some parts of the game still looks pretty good, especially for screenshots, but some of the other parts sure has aged even for its time, like its sound design and just some baffling choices. I don't know what they're thinking. When it clicks though, it's a pretty decent looking and feeling Vietnam War game. You don't have many of those, but what about the most important aspect of a game? The gameplay. Shellshock 2 is a linear first-person shooter with level-based progression, but with some elements of survival horror mixed in, like the slow movement speed with the inability to jump, but you can vault over things, slowly, sometimes. Low stamina, very low ammo capacity, 3 max of 556, are you serious? And a 2 weapon limit, and by that I mean 1 big gun and 1 pistol, and no character progression at all. So you won't find a holster that will increase your weapon carry limit or something like that. Nate himself feels like you're playing a classic survival horror character, complete with tank controls, but in first person. It doesn't really make sense when I say it like that, but that's how I feel. Was the mix good though? I feel like the game has conflicting feelings on what it wants to be, with some mechanics enforcing that survival horror feel, and the other wants to be a normal first-person shooter. For example, Nate is tankier than the usual regenerating health protagonist, so he can take quite a bit of hits before going down, which is usually a thing that traditional health protects has, because they need health pickups, usually, because sometimes he dies really fast out of nowhere in some levels, only dying to as little as 3 zombie hits while he can take so much more in other places, which makes it feeling a bit weird and not really good, especially because he can't see his health. I feel like they tried to make the game use a traditional health system, especially to help the survival horror feel, so that every encounter is actually dangerous and resource draining if you're not careful. But then they will have these parts where you fight a swarm of Viet Cong, where they'll attack you in places with little cover, and sometimes they are actually infinite until you go past a certain point. And speaking about the Viet Cong, they're the first you'll be up against. They do the usual things, if they're not bugging out, and the gunplay is pretty decent most of the time, though the game sorely needs a lean button, because of how many Viet Congs that you're going to fight, but I guess the game wasn't balanced for lean. I feel like that there's way too many swarm fights with the Viet Cong, and while you are sometimes backed up by GIs, they usually die in first few seconds because they don't really have any sense of self-preservation, so it's mostly just you against the horde. I feel like this might be the reason why they decided to go with a regenerating health mechanic to make battles like this actually winnable. Like just don't add them into the game, or at bottomless supply crates where you can get health and ammo. They're not particularly fun. I think it's more fun traipsing around the jungle and only meet a squad or a few of them, which the game does sometimes, instead of having so many of these swarm sequences. They're not particularly a spectacle moment too, so hell, they have more VC horde sequences than zombies, and the fact that you have very low ammo cap also doesn't help. And while you can use grenades to thin a group of them, the grenades are quite fickle to handle. You cannot cook them, and the way Nate throws them is, let's just say, it's pretty random. Sometimes it's an accurate throw, sometimes it's a limb throw that will cause it to run like hell. It's quite unreliable to say the least, and that unreliability doesn't end there. It also sometimes won't kill an enemy point blank, and that's just no good. As for the shooty bang bang, while you can aim down sights, the game's hip fire is actually pretty accurate, and for the pistol especially, seems to track whatever hostile target that's in your crosshair. You don't even need to center it, the game will just do its job for you. And no, it's not the aim assist, it's just like that. This is another symptom of the game's confused intent. Like if they want to make it more survival horror, they could have made the guns work like actual survival horror guns, but in first person. And by that I mean how guns work in Hunt Showdown or Zombie U, where you have to ready your gun to shoot it. Again, this will make fighting the VC hordes hell, but I think it'll be pretty interesting, especially if they want to make it more survival horror. Another is the low ammo capacity, which is quite crazy. At first I thought, oh, low ammo cap. That means I have to conserve ammo for tough encounters with actually dangerous enemies. But then I found out that the game actually likes to sick gun-toting enemies at me, and doesn't actually have multiple ammo types for different guns. They have instead universal ammo for each weapon size, and they all have the same ammo cap, which is 90, not counting the one that's in the gun. Yes, it's that strict. This leads to the crazy situation where you can only carry 4 mags of 5.56, or you cannot fully reload the M60, which carries 100 rounds of ammo, and also makes the shotgun the most frugal gun in the game. While this might sound like a good thing, it's not. I'll get back to you later. Getting ammo from drop guns that's different from yours is also unnecessarily complicated, because you need to switch out the weapon for it first, then switch back. While I would understand it if the game is more of a survival horror title than it is right now, that a Call of Duty style auto ammo pickups will be a bit too actiony, but like the Metro games that's definitely more of a survival horror title, uses a system where you just need to touch the gun to get this ammo without switching to them. It also doesn't help that the game doesn't have persistent inventory, so your inventory will reset every time you finish a level, and the game doesn't even give you a reason for why your inventory resets, which again leads to another crazy scenario where in the story, you were just done restocking at the base for a big assault, but you were only given 2 mags of big ammo and 1 mag of small ammo, which I think is just f***ing nuts and bad. Why can't they just top up your ammo? They just need to give you like 2 more. This very limited ammo cap also ruins whatever mild exploration the game has, where they reward you with ammo, but during those levels, you probably already topped off with ammo, making them pointless. The very limited gun carry capacity is also a bit too much, even as an effort to enhance the survival horror feel. While it is more realistic they can only carry 1 big gun and 1 handgun, it comes with the caveat that trying out new weapons carries a big risk now, that you might hate the new gun, but it's too late to get back to your old gun, so you're stuck with a shitty gun that you don't even like, and also makes you less willing to try out other guns. That's why most shooters allows you to carry more than 1 big weapon, rather than just a handgun and a big gun. This can turn into an even bigger problem in that you can be fighting against both the VC and the zombies at the same time, and if you're carrying a shotgun, you're in for a bad time. This is a special pet peeve of mine, because I'm just gonna say it right now. The shotgun sucks, and you're better off with the M14 or any other gun, because while theoretically it works like a shotgun does, and has one of the best feedback of all the guns in the game, its ability in killing enemies is very hit or miss. It doesn't blast back enemies, it's just as ineffective in killing with body shots as other guns. While you might say do headshots, every gun in the game also kills with just 1 headshot, but with a much better rate of fire, range, ammo capacity, reload speed, and accuracy. The only good thing that it does is that it's very ammo conservative, due to the game's messed up ammo system, and also has a good punchy feel. Just don't look on what it actually does. It really doesn't help that there is 1 level in the game that will be only carrying the shotgun for most of it. Not even a handgun, just a shotgun. So the game made this problem very obvious. The game has committed a grave sin by making the shotgun bad. But what about the other guns? They're okay. Some of them feel better than others to shoot, and some of them are just straight up useless. Like, I don't know why they even have an RPG in this game, which are super rare and also not very good, with a small blast radius and inaccurate as hell. And again, you can only carry 1 big weapon, so who in their right mind will carry an RPG that can only fire 3 times in a game where enemies will swarm at you at close range? And even if they are at a distance, they will scatter, so you can't even use it effectively. You might be thinking right now, it might be supposed to be like how the rocket launchers are used in the Resident Evil games, where you use it to insta-kill bosses. Well, there's only 1 super zombie type in the game that you'll fight as bosses. In those levels, there's no RPG drops. So what the fuck? Also, they have this really exaggerated recoils that makes it unwieldy to use when the RPG is literally a type of recoilless rifle. The most effective gun in the game, I feel, is the M14 with the M60 competing for first place. With the M14, they're super accurate, good ammo capacity, and good rate of fire, and also less likely to waste your ammo unlike the M16. And the M60 is just a powerhouse in every way, with the highest ammo capacity, which is quite important because the zombies sure like swarming you. And the pistols are surprisingly fun to use. They're more like survival horror game pistols, where they can actually be effective as a main gun. I just wish the game gives me more ammo for them. There is actually a third weapon. It's the melee weapon, which are the machete and the combat knife. You can switch between them. They're also borderline useless. They actually do less damage than your standard melee bash, which can kill in 2 hits, while the melee weapons, well... The less said about them, the better. And that is if you even know that they can do a melee bash, because the game doesn't actually tell you that they can do a melee bash, only they can equip and use a melee weapon. You can only find out by checking the options, or just from randomly bashing your keys. I tried pressing V at first to check if there's a melee bash, to no avail. Turns out it was F all along. Anyway, you can like kill enemies faster by just bashing them with your gun, even if it doesn't really stagger a group of enemies or push them back. But that's still faster than changing to your melee weapon, which you can only do with a mouse scroll instead of using hotkeys. Then start DPS racing a zombie which you probably lose to. And on that note... let's talk about the main attraction of the game, zombies. Shellshock 2 has the 28 days later type of runner zombies. They even have the same bleeding from every orifice thing, including spitting them on you. Ugh. So while they look fearsome and can be actually pretty spooky sometimes, especially during their build-up, but the fact that most of the time they'll just slowly walk towards you, giving you ample time to headshot them, pretty much neuters their fear factor. Though in hard mode, they're more likely to run full sprint at you, which while it does make them more threatening and consistent, does present another problem. They become annoying as hell to deal with. Mostly because your melee bash doesn't push them back and that you cannot outrun them even at full sprint, giving you no time to reload. It doesn't help that body shots are inconsistent. Sometimes it does affect them, sometimes it's as effective as harsh words. Toughness wise, they're more like the classic Romero zombies, and will eat those bullets like groceries if they're not headshots. They can even get their limbs destroyed and they'll keep trucking on. In normal though, they're not that much of a threat unless you get swarmed by them, which can happen sometimes, but then you're just stuck in a DPS race. Well, those races are mostly just you playing a point and click game with their heads. I think it's a genuine problem when the final battle of the game can easily be beaten by just standing in the entrance of the arena and just play a pop zombie there. Another thing that brings down their scare factor is that they're sneaky as hell, and not in a smart zombie that hunts you kind of way, it's just that they don't make any noise. Or when they do, it's usually already too late. There's no anticipation of an encounter or terrifying rapid footsteps as approaching you. It's just BLAM! There's a zombie behind you now. Which is just a cheap jump scare that's not even all that effective because 1. There's barely any sound, and 2. You just go, oh, there's a zombie behind me smacking my ass. Guess I have to deal with it. Instead of, you know, something behind you screaming for your blood while accompanied by rapidly approaching footsteps, which can lead to an actual jump scare when you turn back only to find that they're already in your face. It's also super zombies that you fight as boss fights sometimes, and they're pretty tough, but they're slow. These guys require you to do some actual Resident Evil style maneuvering, which is actually kinda fun, if you're using a shotgun. If you're using a fully automatic weapon however, oh, that was disappointing, and all the horror just fades away. And speaking about the horror, the horror aspects of Shellshock 2 is, let's just say it's kinda lacking. By the way, if you're looking for a solid deep horror with the zombies and an allegory for trauma or something, you better look somewhere else. This is a Boo Haunted House style spookfest. It started strongly enough though, with some actual atmospheric sections where you don't fight hordes of VC immediately, and instead engage in small gunfights through a tight dark urban area, with mostly limited ammunition. It sets the tone well enough for a survival horror style shooter set in the Vietnam War, even without the zombies. But it never realized its full potential. Like, you only got into the infamous booby trap claustrophobic tunnels that the VC uses only in one level in the entire game, and it was a very quick jaunt. Like, they could have milked more of these sections to build up horror and tension. Similarly, during the parts where you have to go through a jungle infested with zombies, the game doesn't fully capitalize on this by making the infected have more atmospheric actions that shows their presence. Like, it would be cool if you can see the bushes moving to trick you, infected running into the distance, have their roars break the silence, distant gunshots with screaming along with the roars of the infected, or have them just stare at you from afar. The one time the game did this, it was actually really creepy, as it implies that these zombies aren't fully crazed, and they don't charge at you blindly through obstacles, so it would be perfect to have some just stalk you in the distance, to give the impression that you're being hunted. But they can't even decide what type of zombies they are. They're sneaky as hell, but didn't use that fact to make them look like they're hunting you down. They're also implied by the story to be smarter than the usual zombies. But in gameplay, they work exactly what you think a zombie would act. I do have to note that the game actually did some of this to some very mixed results, mostly because of how rare and easy to miss they are. game also doesn't use parts where you have to wade through deep waters enough. Like, they only used it once and there's no real scares related to it. So you got a section in your horror game where you are slowed down and can't shoot and you only forced to go through it once and there's no real scares in it? What? That's our version and there's lost potential. Like Zombie U and Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, did it much better. Man, that game's so good. By giving you a threat in the water. And this game didn't have a single real scare or like a threat that's looming over you during each one scene where you have to go through deep waters. Like what? And the jump scare things are so mistimed that more often than not, just miss the jump scare completely. Because it confused me and just made me look what the scare was even supposed to be. This usually ends with me getting smacked in the face, however. There's only one part, no, two parts, not counting the first level, that the game almost reaches true potential. The first part was the build up to the zombie reveal. You can only catch glimpses of them and the GI's reaction to them in the one level when the tunnels appear. I especially like the part where you can just see one staring at you from afar. And another way you have to protect some GIs who's carrying around a VC captain that's obviously infected, which forces you to turn your back on them as you hold the line, while you sometimes hear the infected going nuts. The second part is the level right after this. We have to go through an abandoned mansion at night filled with infected, in which they actually used the atmospheric horror part kinda right, but it got gimped by the sneaky and inconsistent zombies. And also, they could have made it even more oppressing, I think, with more atmospheric audio and a bit more jump scares where infected burst through a wall or something, not them hiding behind doorways to get a free hit on you with some limp sound effects. There's also parts where ghosts might be involved, but they just ended up being more goofy than scary. It's implied that they're hallucinations from the fart gas, but they sure like to tell you about their life stories that Nate clearly doesn't know shit about. I think the game should have just abandoned all pretense of groundedness and just go for the full ambiguous and supernatural like Metro, instead of making Nate hit a fart gas to see some ghosts. Their dialogue also doesn't really help, mostly because it involves the most baffling character in the game. Interestingly enough, the level that they're in is also the only level in the game with some level of exploration in it. But unfortunately, the level that they're in was just not scary. They could have put the ghost in the mansion level, and it would have been more spooky, especially if they took some notes from Fear. And also, makes more sense in the story, gas hallucination notwithstanding. I mean, Nate could still be seeing things that aren't there without the need for gas. He's been through a lot. And again, one of the main reasons is that the game kinda doesn't know what it wants to be, so it lands in a weird spot between normal FPS and a survival horror one, where your ammo is limited, but then they change their minds and just give you tons of gun-toting enemies you can get ammo from, or non-threatening sticky zombies that can be more annoying than scary to fight. And of course, a regenerating health system when the character is already, usually, tough as hell even on normal difficulty, which really dampens the tension that you could get from combat. On a side note, there's QTEs in this game. They're quite different.
You are terrible.
There's two types of them. The struggle one, we have to press a sequence button multiple times. They're not bad, but the button prompts does increase on higher difficulties, and can sometimes be a nice jump scare, if they don't spawn right in your face, that is. The game also weirdly gives you a choice on what do you want to kill them with, but shooting them does actually fire a bullet from your gun, though it doesn't matter anyway because ammo is plentiful, just a bit annoying to get, and the zombies won't turn into a crimson head if you don't blow their heads off, so it's just flavor. But the one that I have beef with are the second types, the avoidance type QTEs. These quick time events are for when Nate has to avoid the infamous VC traps, and these things comes much faster and have no room for error. If you press the wrong button or too slow, instant death. The problem with this QT is the fact that the buttons are randomized. It doesn't always follow the logical button that you should press. Like, why am I pressing the button that moves it towards the trap? It just feels jarring and weird. Like, I don't mind with how sudden they are. They are traps after all. But it always wrecks my brain when I have to move closer to the trap to avoid it. I prefer moving through a minefield than dealing with those traps. I guess they did their job making them a nightmare. But honestly, I'd rather have them just instantly unalive me to show how harsh those traps are, than making them feel really jarring. But thankfully, the game allows you to avoid them if you can see them, which rewards attentive players, and I like that. And wish the game has a bit more open jungle maps so you have to avoid traps and enemies. Because I can see this working if they expand on it, like maybe Far Cry Zombie? Ubisoft? Please just make another zombie game. Oh my god, you guys don't know how good you had. Another side note that I wanted to mention is the mid-gameplay cutscenes. It's kinda hard to describe these types, but it's cutscene that only restricts your movement and forces you to look at something and nothing else. These are extremely weird and finicky. Sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's... Wait, they can... What? They can attack me in the middle of the cutscene? It's kinda strange. There's also some infuriating gameplay moments in the story, but it's a spoiler, so I'm gonna talk about it in the story section. As for replayability... There's no replayability, no collectibles, no harder difficulties, no lore entries, no tactile multiplayer game mode, no nothing. And it's quite a short game too. I beat it in one sitting. Surprising really, but yeah, it's a one and done game unless you just want to replay the story campaign. And on that note... And this is the part where I will talk about the story and characters. But first, I will recap the story for a bit, because surprisingly, there's some interesting bits, including some unique gameplay segments. But in short, the story was straightforwardly baffling. Skip here if you want to go spoiler free. The game starts in a US field hospital, where Nate was called up to meet with his brother Cal. There, he also meets up with Sergeant Griffin, who sounds kind of familiar.
Square up, pussy. And listen to Griffin. Maybe today you become a man.
Oh, and he also asked Nate if he knows the so-called White Knight. Some bad stuff is happening around in the field hospital, and Cal looks kinda different.
Hey! Don't you recognize him, fucko? Or maybe you forgot what it smells like, huh?
After some brotherly bonding, Nate is somehow connected to Cal now, and can see what Cal saw. Unfortunately, they get interrupted by the VC attacking the compound, giving a chance for Cal to escape. Hey, at least this is a better excuse than what 98 Weeks Later came up with. This first level is actually kinda good, and tricked me into thinking that this game might be a hidden gem, in one of those cases where the critics were wrong. Like, it showed the game's dark tone perfectly, meaningless trichotomy of allies, brutal violence, claustrophobic and haunting locales with some strong use of lighting. But unfortunately, I was proven wrong. Anyway, after splitting up with Griffin, Nate moves through the town as he fights the VC, with some foreshadowing of what you're going to go up against. If only the cutscene didn't break though.
What the fuck is that?
Moving on, this leads him to a school where he gets cornered by Trang, a VC higher up, and his goons. He seems chummy with him though, holding him at gunpoint notwithstanding. But cavalry is here, and looks like everyone wants Cal like he's some harem protag. While sleeping, Nate sees a vision of Cal giving a warm welcome to a US military checkpoint.
What's wrong with his eyes? Jesus!
Well, nice of you to join us, pissant.
It seems that they're already setting up a quarantine, and there's some incidents happening, which Griffin pays no mind to. And of course, they get into one of those incidents. I don't know why Nate didn't jump out of the truck when the drive already built, but just roll with it. Anyway, this is the part where I started to realize the roughness of the game, as the game pits you against a nearly endless amount of VC by yourself with no Griffin in sight. There's barely any cover and no lane to save you. After defeating a horde of VC, the game then pushes you to another horde section, where you will eventually be cornered inside the church with a bunch of GIs. Say hello to the game's cabin sequence. It's not as exciting as it sounds. After fending off a few waves of VC, their assault was suddenly stopped by some uninvited guests.
Why they run? Must be something else out there. Something real bad. What the fuck was that? They're here! There must be a war in the tunnels under this church.
Well, we're definitely not gonna go through the front door anymore. There might be dogs out there. Thankfully, one of the GIs found a trapdoor hidden at the back. But
Do something!
I do like these loading screen thoughts where you can get more insight on Nate's psyche. It kinda reminds me of Metros and sets the mood for the level. And now you're in one of those infamous horror tunnels. And this part is actually pretty good. People are really not having a good time here. After leaving the tunnels, you go to a trench with some friendlies there. After fending off yet another VC horde, you go deeper into the trenches. And then, this happens. This quick time event is one of the weirdest one in the game. Usually if you fail the QT, you just die. But this time, it's your friend that will die. This is the only QT that's like this in the entire game. The bafflement doesn't end here, because right after this you got knocked out by a mortar, after which you meet the most baffling character in the game.
I'm dreaming, right?
Even dreams don't get this good, baby. I'm all real. You wanna touch?
Got a trick question?
Serena! What have I told you? This isn't a game. I, Rupert Zidek, forbid you to use that gun.
Chill out, candy ass. You ain't my dad.
Come on now, Serena. I'm your agent.
You want 20% of this?
Hey, gentlemen busy? You ain't noticed we're having a little trouble here.
Come on, honey. On your feet. Let's show this tansy how a real man defends his women folk.
I'm just gonna let her speak for herself. I don't think I need to say anything about this. Apparently, she's a movie star that was filming before she got pulled into actual combat with Zidek as her agent. The wiki wasn't sure about this. Anyway, now you have to hold the bunker down in yet another horde section. This part was straight up the hardest part in the entire game for me. There's so little cover, and the VC can attack you from anywhere, while the GIs just dies in the first few seconds, leaving you and Serena to fend for yourselves. Well, mostly you, because most of the allies are useless in this game. There's also a weird fucked up part that also happens in this section. After you fend off a few waves of VC, the mortars will eventually blow up on the barricades that's blocking the way we have to go through. Problem is, those are real mortars with real damage. This is messed up in a few ways. 1, you're probably in low health because of the onslaught. 2, it has a huge radius. And 3, you don't know which enemy will trigger the mortar strike, so there's no time to run from the mortar strike once it's triggered. This is the part where I died the most in the entire game, and it never got this fucked up again. After leaving the bunker, Nate gets stopped by some GIs while Serena just skedaddles away. Bye! I actually do like this part though. You basically have to hold off yet another horde section to protect the people carrying a zombie. So you fend off the horde while hearing some really fun sounds coming from behind you. Surprisingly, they took away the guy without a hitch, only for him to escape a few moments later. Wow, good job guys, I'm very proud of you. Your brothers must be very proud. Another horde section where you literally don't have any cover later. You went through a tunnel where you first encountered your first real gameplay zombie. Oh wow, that's a bit anticlimactic. And if you think the baffling train has stopped, it hasn't.
Fucker in there! Kill him! Johnny, this way, soldier! We got a trench!
This was such a weird cutscene that you can actually miss Serena getting her head bashed in, and you wonder why she appears as a ghost much later on. This GI sure isn't bothered by the crazed cannibals trying to eat his face. How do you feel, buddy? Okay, anyway, you get to the boat and escape the Zambambos with some GIs and Zidek as they leave for a mansion where the Spec Ops soldiers are waiting for Nate. But as it turns out, one of them is kind of feeling the munchies.
That was a drag.
Why does everyone just loves to leave Nate behind? Stupid opening notwithstanding, this is the best level in the game. Well, there's not a lot happening story-wise. It's the strongest in gameplay. For once, there's a horde section, and also it's kinda spooky. Passing through a trap-infested jungle and a Zambambo-infested mansion, we found out that unsurprisingly, the Spec Ops has lost their minds waiting for Nate. Instead, Trang was waiting for him in their absence, still looking for Cal. But speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Well, that's kinda mean calling Cal the devil. He's just kinda feeling the munchies. Interrupted, Trang and his goons just leave Nate to run away again. You can actually hear the VC and the Zambambos fighting outside. And this is exactly what I want from this game. After going through the mansion again, including a boss fight, Nate arrives at the pier to find Zydek somehow still alive, just silently waiting on a boat.
Cal!
And we get a confirmation that Cal is the zombie king now. I know how you feel, Nate. I know. After getting attacked by some VC, the river adventure came to an abrupt end, and you're back to everyone's favorite game mode. Horde mode. This time, you'll be backed by some GIs again. They will die in the first few seconds again. This part though requires you to keep moving because the enemies will spawn endlessly. Oh wow, they're just ignoring me now, huh? Oh, separated again. This part is one of the more open-ended parts of the game. Not a lot, but it's something. Because first, it's the only level that has some optional scenes and areas tied to them. True, you'll be seeing ghosts when you hit this part gases, which will cause Arena to appear. Still baffling as ever even as a ghost.
You want to come see what we've got for you? Like what you see? You're next.
Where's Zach Vegas when you need him? This is also one of the levels where you can hear the infected all around you, but with less successful results. Ow, my ears! It's mostly because the temple was not a scary place at all, with bigger areas compared to the claustrophobic mansion, and the fact that it's set during the day doesn't really help. I mean, daylight horror could work, but this wasn't it. Anyway, you came across a bridge where another really weird thing happens. So I was just exploring a bit after clearing the area of zombies, but then... What the fuck? Wait, what? What? Huh? So, I don't know what to say about this, but the game didn't even give you a notice this cutscene, or mention those bombs at all. Even the ghosts that appear right before this area didn't talk about it, and you don't even interact with it. Nate will immediately just detonate the bombs if he so much as touch a corpse that's holding the detonator without any warning. And also, there's so little zombies here that it's just unnecessary. I don't know, man, I'm just gonna roll with it. Hey, Zydek's still alive. Guess he won't be in Shellshock 3. After moving deeper into the temple while thinning out the population, you meet again with a familiar face. It's Griffin, coming to help Nate.
Rendezvous with your brain, Broadway. Keep 'em home.
I got it! Hold on! I got it there!
Whole ass.
Uh-oh. I guess at least it wasn't tuberculosis? Of course, this leads to the inevitable fate that all helicopter pilots that's not at the end of the story has. After seeing a vision that shows a notable landmark, it turns out that the pilot surprisingly survived without a scratch, and he tells him about the landmark. But again, he's leaving Nate to fend for himself.
Wait, you're leaving me?
Nate is getting self-aware now. In this level, sometimes you can see or hear Griffin running around in the background, but like, he's not making any roaring noise or anything. He's just there having fun. But he did call out one name over and over though. Who the hell is Lenny? After traipsing through the jungle and witnessing some zombie on VC violence, with Griffin trying to hog tie you sometimes, I don't know why Nate chooses to jump into the ravine instead of, you know, just shooting him. But just roll with it. Try and beat you to the convoy that's supposed to bring you to safety. And the pilot's here too.
We have many questions.
Nate sees more vision again where he saw Cal getting his first injection with the bioweapon made by this dude, so he can sell them to the military. And Cal is just a test run to show his power.
There must always be pain, no?
What? Waking up, Nate is being interrogated by Trang, doing persuasion checks on him, but he failed, so instead he chooses violence, which can lead into one of the funniest QTE fails.
shit, I'm sorry.
Anyway, after surviving the QTE, turns out the pilot snitched on you, and so he was fed to Griffin. A timely rescue by a zombie later caused it to be freed. In this level, your flashlight torch gets taken away, which is fun. I love when games integrate story into the gameplay. Unfortunately, this is also where you realize that this game is dark as fuck sometimes, but enemies can still see you just as easily. What, you thought there's like stealth mechanics in Shellshock too? So you crank that brightness up, just so you can actually see where you're shooting. After fighting off some PCs and Zs, you reach a tunnel where you get sealed in. You eventually get to a huge open area where the game acts like you're supposed to run from the zombies to the GIs that came here to save you. But that's a really bad idea, as that means the zombies will stack on top of each other and just swarm you to death. The best way to do it is just slowly taking them out, as usual, because they always have like 3 zombies coming at you that will actually respawn. After rendezvousing with the Spec Ops, Nate is immediately roped in on a mission to kill Trang.
All yours. Time for some real John Wayne shit.
You're accompanied by a friendly who will actually react to you messing around, and is also trying to kill you.
Now we get to see what you made of, you fucking pussy. Time for the show.
Did he just block the door?
Nice moving, Slick.
Wait,
You want to
is he
die
trying to
now?
kill me? You eventually go separate ways to look for Trang in the prison, but of course, it's not a really normal POW camp. You can see me jump there. After the other guy get ambushed and killed, you meet up with Discount Woods again with... Uh-oh.
Found you, Lenny! Lenny, my boy! Lenny!
Well, we hardly knew you, Discount Woods. After chasing Trang, he eventually got the drop on Nate, but he really wants him to beg for his life. He's not done for the count though, as he made another attempt on his life. Oh, that's anticlimactic. Gotta make sure. But as you make your escape, there stands Griffin, unshaken.
Okay, we done here. We left someone behind.
We had left someone behind. Maybe some distant part of him was still in there, still worth saving. Or maybe the only part left was the part that most needed to be destroyed.
But very shaken, however, this is Poe's last command center that got ran over by Zambambos.
Real bad, like, hold up! Ah! Hey, why'd you do that? What's happened here, man?
Everyone fucking died, that's what happened. Except the brass. They all got evacuated to the high ground. And that's where I'm going now.
You get in my way, I'll fucking kill you too.
I'm so tired with these assholes. And yes, they leave Nate once again. This is the worst level in the game by far. 1, this level looks kinda shit. 2, it's not scary at all. And 3, you are stuck with the shotgun for the most of it. You weren't even given a pistol. Where the fuck did my weapons go on the last level, man? While it is interesting that the game wants you to stay on high ground to avoid Zambambos, and you can actually just kill them all easily if you can corral them into a corridor. Just get ready for some tedium. And also, these zombies can jump into a helicopter, so there's no reason why they can't follow you up some ladders. Anyway, you eventually make your way to the temple where the command center is. And it turns out, there's another squad that was sent to hunt for White Knight, but they got wiped by Cal, who already still seems to be himself, even after becoming the zombie king.
Don't try to save him! White Knight will die. Everything he's created is turned against him. Don't come in here. Don't try. It belongs to the infection now. Don't try.
So is he fully a zombie or not? Did he just get this zombie lapses where he starts going berserk and attacks anyone? Did he consciously spread the infection, or was it out of his control? I don't know, I'm just gonna roll with it. Because we're at the final level of the game, Attack on White Knight. For this mission you are given a squad. Well, that's what the game says anyway. Just get dropped at the HUD and left to fend for yourself while they provide air support as the zombie attacks you during the cutscene. You are also fully prepped for this final assault to save humanity, with 2 mags of 5.56 and 1 mag of 45. Great. Awesome. Making your way to White Knight with your supposed squad that immediately dies the moment you take your eyes off them, you get the implication that the infected might not be single-minded after all. But perish the thought. After playing Pop the Zombie, Nate eventually reached Cal, who still lucid.
I'm gonna get you out of here to safety, but I need to bind your hands.
Nate. Nate.
But the infection.
I don't... Nate, get me out of here.
Man, what the fuck is going on?
Do not shoot.
Don't fucking move!
I am not dangerous. I saved your brother. Gave him the antidote.
Antidote.
Here, my head. You have the proof it works. If you wish to save thousands, perhaps millions of lives.
It turns out that Cal was apparently given the antidote. When and how? I don't know. And that White Knight knows how to make more. But Cal is adamant that White Knight needs to die. Right here, right now. And this is where you get to decide your ending. Let's go with the entire reason we're here in the first place. And let Cal kill him. Nate carries Cal to another helo. But the White Knight turns out to be still alive. Only to get torn apart by the infected. It is the way of men to create monsters, and the way of monsters to destroy their creators. Wait, who said that? Found out that Cal died 3 weeks later, even with the antidote that's apparently in his body. By that point, the outbreak has become an epidemic, and with White Knight gone, scientists struggle to find a cure. Even with Cal, whose body apparently got the antidote. So it's all for nothing. Bad end, goodbye, enjoy your free bird. Roger Clark! Let's rewind a bit. Saving White Knight means shooting Cal. Why couldn't he just knock him out or take his gun from him was not explained, so just roll with it. Taking White Knight to the helo, Ned sees that Cal is still alive. That's good, right? I mean, he's cured. However, instead of the infected coming in, it's the GIs that came up to clean up the area. Hey, they're coming to save Cal. Wait, why is he screaming like that? I thought he was cured. He was cured? What? Wasn't he cured? With White Knight saved, the antidote was created, but Nate still feels vengeful for everything he has done, and promises to take revenge somewhere down the line. Good ending, yay? The story of Shellshock 2 is pretty straightforward on paper, but execution-wise, let's just say it left a lot to be desired. Random tonal shifts with baffling characters, weird dialogue, inconsistent rules for the infected, and most of the characters being unlikable assholes, except for a few. And all of them didn't get enough screen time to flesh them out, so you won't care if they get taken out. It also doesn't really help that there's no lore drops, audio logs, or notes anywhere in the game, and the environmental storytelling that they use are only for the horror, not for the story. It's more to set the mood, and the time they did it for the story only raises some questions that never gets answered, and was never explored any further. I do like how Nate is an actual character in the story and has some stakes, and he's actually a pretty normal dude that only talks when he needs to, instead of a blank slate on an MCU character. But I gotta admit that sometimes I can't tell who's talking, and that he wasn't fleshed out enough. I think the game could have done more with his character, one that harkens back to the title of the game, because he's surprisingly stable, even after all the shit he went through. The story also ends with a wet fart of a climax, with unsatisfying endings. There's some glimmers of fun horror sequences, but they didn't fully realize their potential. It also doesn't help that we never got to see the reaction of an average civilian, or team up, or even play as the VC during the outbreak. I think that could have been a very interesting perspective to see. But overall, it's a pretty safe, predictable story that wasn't executed very well, but it's still kinda entertaining sometimes, especially during the baffling parts. Just don't expect a deep, intricate, and emotional story out of Shellshock 2 Blood Trails. The Vietnam War is such a great setting for a war horror story to take place in, especially a survival horror one. But Shellshock 2 didn't really capitalize on it, and feels confused on what he wanted to be. A normal Vietnam War zombie shooter game, or a survival horror FPS game, with mechanics that supports both, but also contradicts each other. One wants to be Resident Evil, and the other side wants to be Call of Duty Zombies, and it just made it worse than the sum of its parts. While Shellshock 2 ended up being a mishmash of contradicting gameplay mechanics and sequences, there's still some parts of it where you can see the true potential of a Vietnam War survival horror game, but unfortunately, it didn't quite get there. It's still perfectly playable, but it's like below the midline. For comparison, I'll put Legendary on the upper midline. I just hope someone else can give this combination of genre and setting another shot, because they have a good idea here. Thanks for sticking around and watching it to the end. I really appreciate it. There will be more videos like this coming soon, so if you like what you see, consider giving a like, share it, and subscribe, and also check out my other videos. Still kinda growing right now, but so far I'm just really enjoying making these types of videos. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.